US debt of $36 trillion and counting is now weighing on their ability to take more loans. And it's not that simple, ladies and gentlemen. It's making American corporates, some of them at least, more safer as far as investment goes. Investment in their bonds. Yes. In today's America, ladies and gentlemen, it's easier for a Microsoft or a Johnson & Johnson or Apple, or in some cases even Nvidia, to borrow at a lower cost than the US government. Not only that, few American companies are even bigger than India's entire bond market, which is still at a developing scale. Now, both these factors underlying the growing influence and impact of American corporations in the global bond market. Let's take the first part. Usually, when investors are willing to lend to companies at a lower yield than the government, it's because the country is eventually facing a financial crisis and the government default risk is rising. But in this case, two pristine-rated bonds from Microsoft that trade at lower yields than equivalent treasury tell us something different. The demand for corporate bonds is running super hot. This article in the Mint suggests so. Go and check it out. Now, this is extremely unusual, both because companies, in principle, much more likely are to default than the government that can tax them, and also because the corporate bonds are harder to trade, so should yield a little more to compensate buyers. So why is this happening? There are several theories for why anyone would pay more for a bond from Microsoft or Apple than for a treasury. Let's start with the first theory, which very few believe. They are safer. Yep, you heard that right. Now, all these corporate bonds are rated AAA, while the US the US Treasury has lost its top rating from all the major credit rating firms. Microsoft is right now sitting on a $95 billion of cash and has only $40 billion of long-term debt. It's immensely profitable and popular with investors for its nascent AI business, artificial intelligence. On the contrary, the US government owns the public $30 trillion and has spent more than it receives every year since 2001. But the bloated federal budget deficit means massive issuance of treasuries. At the same time, corporate profitability has suppressed the need for corporates, these highest quality companies, to borrow. The combination of more treasuries on one hand and fewer top-grade corporate bonds has naturally squeezed the gap between their yields. Now let's come to India. Some American corporates are bigger than India's entire bond market. You see, India's bond market size is $2.5 to $3 trillion. It shuffles in this range. Microsoft, on the other hand, has a total bond market size of $3.24 trillion. Apple is $2.97 trillion and Nvidia is $2.78 trillion. That explains a lot, ladies and gentlemen. American corporations, some of them command a yielding influence when it comes to the global bond market. Now, although the yield gap between 10-year Indian and US treasuries has narrowed down, India as a country still has a long way to go when it comes to the bond market. The Indian 10-year benchmark bond yield is 6.2496%, while the US 10-year treasury yield is 4.586%. Indian bond market size is $2.5 to $3 trillion, whereas US stands at $50 trillion. And a lot of that has to do with American corporates. Stay tuned to Live Mint for more such updates on the bond market and on the update on American corporates.